60,000 people held their breath at once. Michael Jackson was lying on the ground. No one knew what to do. The music stopped. The lights froze. Security rushed the stage. Screams echoed through Wembley Stadium. His body motionless. His glove inches from his face. And in that moment, every single person in that arena thought they were witnessing the end. But what happened next would become the most profound moment in concert history. This is the story of how one collapse changed everything. It was June 16, 1988. London. Wembley Stadium. The Bad World Tour. 7 sold-out nights. Michael Jackson at the absolute peak of his powers. The most famous human being on planet Earth was about to perform for 60,000 screaming fans. Behind the curtain, Michael stood alone. White tape wrapped around his fingers. Fedora tilted just right. Heart racing not from nerves, but from purpose. He always felt it before going on stage. That pull. That responsibility. He wasn't just entertaining. He was healing. 2 minutes, Michael, the stage manager whispered. Michael nodded. Closed his eyes. Prayed. Like he always did. Let me reach the ones who need it most. The lights went black. The crowd erupted. And Michael Jackson became more than a man. He became pure energy. Pure love. Pure magic. The way you make me feel. Exploded through the speakers. His feet moved impossibly fast. His voice cut through the night air like lightning. 60,000 voices sang every word back to him. This wasn't a concert. This was communion. But in the third row, something was happening that Michael couldn't see yet. Something that would change the course of this night forever. A young girl, maybe 8 years old, stood perfectly still while everyone around her danced. Her name was Sarah. She wore a red jacket just like Michael's. Her parents had saved for months to bring her here. This was supposed to be the greatest night of her life. But Sarah wasn't dancing. She was crying. Silent tears streaming down her face. Her mother noticed first. Sarah, honey, what's wrong? Sarah shook her head. She couldn't explain it. How could she tell her mother that she'd been in the hospital for 6 months? That the doctors said she might not make it to her 9th birthday? That this concert, this moment, was her wish. Her only wish. And somehow, impossibly, Michael Jackson felt it. Halfway through. Human nature. Michael stopped moving. Just for a second. His eyes scanning the front rows. Searching. The band kept playing. The crowd kept singing. But Michael had felt something shift in the energy. Someone was in pain. He moved to the edge of the stage. Still singing. Still performing. But his eyes kept searching. And then he found her. Sarah. 3rd row. Not dancing. Just crying. Their eyes met. And in that split second, Michael knew. He didn't know the details. Didn't know about the hospital, or the diagnosis, or the wish. But he knew pain when he saw it. He'd carried enough of his own. The song ended. The crowd roared. Michael was supposed to launch into Billie Jean. The pyrotechnics were ready. The dancers were in position. But Michael Jackson did something that security had never seen him do. He walked to the very edge of the stage. Knelt down. And reached his hand toward Sarah. Security moved to stop him. But Michael waved them off. The entire stadium watched in confused silence as the king of pop extended his gloved hand toward a little girl in a red jacket. Sarah's mother gasped. Sarah stood frozen. And Michael smiled. That gentle, childlike smile that reminded everyone why they loved him. It's okay, Michael whispered. Come here. But then something happened that no one expected. Michael Jackson collapsed. His body went limp. He fell backward on the stage. The glove slipped from his hand. For 3 seconds, the entire stadium was silent. Security rushed forward. The band stopped playing. Sarah screamed. And 60,000 people held their breath. Michael's security chief, Bill Bray, reached him first. Michael! Michael, can you hear me? The crowd was screaming now. panic spreading like wildfire. EMTs were sprinting toward the stage. But then Michael moved. Slowly. His hand reaching up. Not to grab help. Not to steady himself. To pick up the glove he dropped. Bill Bray leaned closer. Michael, we need to get you off stage. You need medical attention. Michael shook his head. His voice barely a whisper. The girl. The girl in the red jacket. Get her up here. Now. Bill looked at him like he'd lost his mind. Michael, you just collapsed. We need to. Get her up here. Michael's voice was stronger now. Absolute. Please. What the crowd didn't know was that Michael Jackson hadn't collapsed from exhaustion. He had felt Sarah's pain so deeply, so completely, that his body couldn't hold it. He'd taken her suffering into himself. It took 2 minutes for security to navigate through the crowd and reach Sarah. Her parents were terrified. Security was shouting. But Sarah, somehow, understood. She took the security guard's hand without hesitation. As they led her toward the stage, Michael forced himself to stand. His legs shaking. His head pounding. But his eyes never left Sarah. The crowd watched in absolute silence as this 8-year-old girl in a red jacket climbed the stairs to the stage. As she walked toward Michael Jackson. As he knelt down again, this time steady, and took both of her hands in his. What's your name? Michael asked softly. Sarah. Her voice barely audible. Sarah, I need you to do something for me. Can you do that? She nodded. Michael reached into his jacket pocket. Pulled out a white handkerchief. The same one he'd used in every show. He'd carried it for 7 years. It had been with him through Thriller. Through Bad. Through every performance. He placed it gently in Sarah's hands. I want you to hold this, Michael said. And every time you feel scared, every time you feel alone, I want you to remember that you're stronger than you think. That you're loved. That you matter. Sarah clutched the handkerchief to her chest. Tears still streaming down her face. But now they were different tears. Michael stood. Took the microphone from its stand. And spoke to the 60,000 people watching this moment unfold. Sometimes, he said, his voice shaking with emotion, we forget why we're really here. We think it's about the music. About the dancing. About the show. But it's not. It's about this. It's about her. It's about every single person in this stadium who came here carrying something heavy. And I want you to know that you're not alone. The silence was deafening. Sarah's going to stay up here with me for this next song. And I want all of you to sing. Not for me. For her. Can you do that? 60,000 voices responded as one. Yes. Subscribe now because what happened in the next 4 minutes would become the most watched moment in concert history. Michael signaled to the band. They started playing. Heal the World. The song he'd written for children exactly like Sarah. Sarah stood next to him, clutching that white handkerchief, as Michael Jackson poured every ounce of his soul into those lyrics. But halfway through the first verse, Michael did something that made even the band stop. He handed Sarah the microphone. Sing with me, he whispered to her. Sarah looked terrified. Looked at the crowd. Looked back at Michael. He nodded encouragingly. And she sang. Her voice was small. Shaky. But she sang. And Michael sang with her. His arm around her shoulder. His voice supporting hers. And 60,000 people sang with them both. The cameras captured it all. Sarah's face going from fear to joy. Michael's eyes filled with tears. The entire stadium swaying together. This wasn't a concert anymore. This was something holy. When the song ended, Sarah threw her arms around Michael Jackson. And he held her. Just held her. While 60,000 people stood and cried. Michael leaned down to her ear. Said something that only she could hear. She nodded. Wiped her eyes. And Michael walked her back to security, who escorted her to her parents. The show continued. Michael performed Billie Jean, with more energy than he'd had all night. He performed Man in the Mirror, like it was the last song he'd ever sing. And when the concert ended, he didn't leave the stage. He stood there, hand over his heart, looking at every single person in that stadium. But here's the part that nobody knows. The part that will leave you speechless. After the show, Michael insisted on meeting Sarah's parents. He sat with them in his dressing room for 45 minutes. Asked about Sarah's diagnosis. About her treatment. About what she needed. 2 days later, Sarah's parents received a phone call. Michael Jackson's team had arranged for her to see a specialist in Los Angeles. All expenses covered. Treatment, travel, accommodation. Everything. Sarah's mother tried to refuse. Said they couldn't accept. But Michael's assistant delivered a message that still makes people cry when they hear it. Michael said this isn't charity. He said Sarah saved his life on that stage. And now he gets to save hers. Please let him. Sarah underwent treatment. Months of it. And Michael called her every single week. Sometimes just for 2 minutes. Sometimes for an hour. He sent her drawings. Sent her music. Sent her hope. Share this video if you believe one moment can change a life forever. On Sarah's 9th birthday, a package arrived at her hospital room. Inside was a red jacket. Exactly like the one she'd worn to the concert. And a note in Michael's handwriting. Happy birthday, Sarah. See? You made it. I knew you would. You're stronger than you think. Always remember Wembley. Always remember that you're loved. Always remember that you matter. Your friend, Michael. Sarah recovered. Fully. The doctors called it remarkable. Her parents called it a miracle. Sarah called it Michael. She kept that white handkerchief. Framed it. And next to it, she framed something else. A photo that a fan had taken that night. Michael kneeling on stage. Sarah standing in front of him. His hands holding hers. The moment everything changed. Years later, when Michael Jackson died, Sarah was among the millions who mourned. But she didn't mourn the superstar. She mourned her friend. The man who collapsed on stage because he felt her pain. The man who gave her hope when she had none. She wrote a letter that day. Never sent it. But she kept it. And in it she wrote, Michael, you always said we should heal the world. But that night at Wembley you healed me. Not with medicine. Not with money. With something more powerful than either. You healed me with presence. With attention. With love. You saw me when I felt invisible. You heard me when I had no voice. You stayed when everyone else would have run. That white handkerchief isn't just fabric to me. It's proof. Proof that kindness is real. That empathy is powerful. That one person caring can change everything. Thank you for collapsing. Thank you for feeling my pain. Thank you for teaching me that strength isn't about never falling down. It's about what you do when you get back up. I love you. Forever. Sarah. This is Michael Jackson's real legacy. Not the moonwalk. Not the records. Not the fame. This. The white handkerchief still hangs in Sarah's home. She's 43 now. Has 2 children of her own. And she tells them the story every year on June 16th. The story of the night Michael Jackson collapsed at Wembley Stadium. The night he chose a sick little girl over pyrotechnics. The night he proved that the most powerful thing in the world isn't music, or money or fame. It's empathy. Michael Jackson lived his entire life feeling everything. Every pain. Every joy. Every fear. It's what made him the greatest performer who ever lived. But it's also what destroyed him. He carried the world's suffering on his shoulders. And the weight eventually became too much. But on June 16, 1988, that gift saved a life. If this story touched you, share it. Subscribe. Let people know this is who Michael Jackson really was. The world remembers Michael for his talent. Sarah remembers him for his heart. And that white handkerchief, framed and fading, reminds us all that the greatest performance Michael Jackson ever gave wasn't on a stage. It was kneeling in front of a little girl, seeing her pain, and choosing to do something about it. That's not entertainment. That's love. That's Michael Jackson.